Jung Institute, and to thank you for coming tonight and doing something so foolish as to spend a precious evening of your time coming to such a depressing topic as collapse. And I actually, I've been studying collapse, working with collapse at least since 2005, when I read Jared Diamond's book, Collapse, How Societies Choose to Fail or Succeed. And I have to admit that I've gotten a lot of comment and pushback from friends and family who don't really want to talk about this. And there's a lot of people that don't really want to talk about this. And they change the subject, just a general, well, Steve, what are you working on, what are you doing, what's going on? And studying about collapse. And then in particular, I've been sort of had a forceful education in economic collapse and the stock market and various things that have been going on. For me, I've been very involved in that since 2006. And so, I've had to ask myself, even as an analyst, why people are so upset about this, or just to really, when I keep going and don't let them change the subject, people do even ask me to stop, just stop. What is the emotional reaction that is going on? And I've also been asked directly, are you depressed? Why are you interested in this? What can anybody do? Why should someone learn about this? And my answer personally has always been, well, why am I doing it? To prepare, to engage in my own preferred form of anxiety management, which for me is I seem to feel better if I can get my arms around some information and have that in my head and understand it. It doesn't actually do anything to do that, but it does make me feel better when I do that. And that's how our anxiety management works in general. And so with all of that, now I want to offer sort of even a deeper appreciation for you being here tonight. I thought even when I presented the topic to Nezja that I wasn't sure there would be anybody tonight with the avoidance, especially like when Lily came out, the novel, and a novel about a 9/11 widow. I've been really surprised that people aren't even ready to talk about 9/11, and it's been more than 9 years, and that sort of piece of cultural integration hasn't happened. People are not ready to talk about it still to this day. They still find it so disturbing. People that have come to book signings talked about it. People that I introduced my book to, and then they say, it's about a 9/11 widow, and then that sort of the conversation stops. I, for one, was ready. I think that was part of what the writing was about, to see how I would integrate that experience. And part of that is what's in the novel, and part of that is what's in what I want to talk about tonight. So first of all, I thought tonight that it would be helpful to accomplish 3 things, and that's what I'm going to set out to do. First of all, we need to start with the idea that collapse is universal. From an anthropological point of view, there's a way of saying that every society and civilization that has ever existed has collapsed in the end. Societal collapse has occurred in every historical period on every continent, from the first bands of human beings to the recent collapses of Argentina, Rwanda, and in Haiti. Haiti has collapsed. And that we begin with this idea that societies and civilizations collapse, towns and villages collapse, economies and organizations collapse, families collapse and individuals collapse. I think the collapse of families and individuals is a very important psychological topic. And so one that I hope I'm going to discuss a great deal tomorrow in the workshop is we're working on grief and working through that. So tonight, though, I want to focus on this larger topic of societal collapse, and then starting tonight with the definition of collapse and some current anthropological and historical thinking and economic theories of the collapse dynamic. So there's that sort of initial piece I want to do, and then I want to move ahead then to do the Jungian thing, which is to look at the symbolism of collapse from a psychological perspective. And that is that I've been very surprised to discover that the symbolism goes all the way back to my original work on the psychology of time that I was talking about before, which is the archetype of renewal. So that in that way we learn that collapse can be seen as part of the ancient theme of the death and the rebirth of the king. And as I said before, of which the New Year's celebration, all of the aspects of death and rebirth in renewal are included in the original New Year's celebration. So you would say then that collapse mythologically represents the period of the interregnum, if you've heard that term in Latin, sort of between the kings, time between kings. After the death of the old king, but before the apotheosis of the new king. In other words, it's a time of chaos. So the symbolism of collapse. And then finally, the third thing then is, as we get to the end tonight, if we can withstand the emotional affect, which I'm not sure that we can. We'll have to see how we do here, how we go. I want to discuss a little bit the concept of symbolic warnings of collapse. So along those lines, I want to try a method of interpreting an outer event as if it were a dream, a collective dream, and to see where that leads us in our thinking. So for instance, first I'd like to have you look at the image of the sinking of the Titanic in April of 1912, which to me comes as a symbolic warning of the collapse of the social order that was known as World War I. And then, having practiced a little bit on Titanic, I would like to turn our attention to the events of 9/11 and the collapse of the World Trade Towers. Working with the events of 9/11 as if it were a dream, and then how we would interpret it in the same way. We use the same methodology to approach a collective dream as an individual dream. And so, for instance, one of the amplifications I'm sure an analyst would make, the first thing if somebody brought in a dream like 9/11, would be the remarkable parallels between the tarot card of the tower and the events of 9/11, and that the interpretation of that card has a whole lot to do with the interpretation of the symbolic significance of 9/11. So with that interpretation, I want to argue for this position tonight that the symbolic significance of 9/11 comes as a symbolic warning of the collapse that we are now enduring. And that, like any dream correctly interpreted, it does offer the very insight into ourselves that we need to see to move through this trough of renewal and to find the coming of a new age, a new time, of new potentials arising from the death of the old order.